Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor. I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about the situation that I watched all 3.5 hours of yesterday, which was Chris Wylie, ex research director from Cambridge Analytica, um, presenting his evidence to the Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee, who are the guys who are overseeing the issue around the Facebook data, and that's the committee that we've seen in the news the last few days calling for Mark Zuckerberg to actually come across and present to the committee himself rather than sending a junior, because it's his company, he's responsible in the long term and in the long run and all the rest of it. And it's something that they were, to be fair, I feel quite rightly annoyed with the response that they've gotten from Facebook so far, because rather unsurprisingly, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg himself in particular, have been fairly non-committal in regards to the way that they want to deal with this, other than, oh yeah, there is a fault, there is a problem, we're going to go and we're going to do more, we're going to do better. Yeah, but we hear that a lot. Actually come and be accountable for it. It's like one of the things that was highlighted the other day online was that they're an online platform, and they put out their apology in newspapers, dying medium that is kind of printed newspapers, when they've got a huge platform for them to just put the information out on straight away. But that's the thing. They're smart. I reckon, my personal opinion was that it's like, yeah, well, we know it's a dying medium, so if we put that out on in the papers, then that means those people that haven't heard about all of this and who don't know the full story and all the rest of it won't then think that we are as guilty and as at fault of kind of negligence as we actually are. So I feel like that's kind of more calculated. But on to the point, I felt like a lot of the questions were very straightforward. I felt like Chris Wylie's answers were illuminating. My personal opinion of Chris Wylie, by the way, is that I don't care about whether or not, because lots of people have been going, oh, he just wants to bring down the companies, he's just got this, I don't care if he just wants to bring down these companies if all of the information that he's bringing forward is accurate. And again, he made a point of saying in front of the committee that there's been a lot of fact checking of the information he's been bringing forward and the people that he's been working with to bring this into the light, as it were, including Channel 4, The Guardian, The Observer, I think he said The Evening Standard as well, The Washington Post, I think, and The New York Times, I think. But he was like, there have been a lot of reporters from all over the place independently clawing through this information. If it wasn't solid, if it wasn't reinforced, if it wasn't backed up, if it couldn't be fact checked, then I'd kind of be in trouble and no one would be listening to me anyway, in which case, there it is. So I don't care if he's just got some bone to pick with Alexander Nix or with SCL Group or with Cambridge Analytica specifically or AIQ over in Canada or any of that stuff. If now he's highlighting things that are accurate, that are wrongdoing, that are negative, and that's, considering we're talking about working with kind of private spying groups and with kind of various contractors setting up shell companies, potentially committing a form of very hard to prove fraud, and stuff like that. Having these companies, or this one group that was worked with and funded by very specific individuals, having them essentially just move towards trying to be the shadow government for the world, trying to nudge things in the direction they want to see, which often seems to be a fairly negative kind of direction, considering some of the things that we've seen. Then it's troubling. It's a problem. And so even though personally I'm not a big fan of some of the personal opinions that Chris Wylie has put forward, I'm not a huge fan of his level of kind of detachment from his own accounts from early on when he first started working for SCL and first started doing the work that has led to this point. You know, I'm not a huge fan of that lack of awareness. But again, he's brought forward all this information, including information about the activities of the group, other people involved who should be talked to, other people who may very well be related, other cases, other criminal cases that may be related. You know, there's so much additional information there that is so important. And, you know, especially when it comes down to him talking through the process that has been used. That was the thing that kind of stood out to me, because in my videos last week, where I was talking about the Big Five personality trait model, as well as then talking about kind of Cambridge Analytica and what was going on, I said that, you know, it was a good chance that they didn't need to find everybody. They just needed to find the correct movers and shakers to affect the people that they wanted to affect. And where, again, he highlights that they only needed to affect a small number of people, and where they had their conversions based on actual action, not just clicks, but on people doing things on behalf of the cause, the call that they had put out. It was, and those numbers were small. You know, 10% of people who had seen it or interacted with it then went on to be a part of the conversion figure by doing something, and yet that was still good. That's still good for online marketing. That's still good for online targeted ads. And pointing out that even though they had between 50 million and 80 million pieces of Facebook kind of profile info, it was still a case of, well, they didn't need to use all that much. They used somewhere between 7 and 10 million pieces of that info to target those individuals attached to the information to get the result that they wanted. You know, that's you know, it's picking out those correct people and kind of focus firing them, and then, you know, when they explode, they cause the splash damage, they cause the ripples throughout the rest of their community, the rest of their social group, that then cause the change that you want to see. You know, whether it's sharing more information, joining up to a campaign, giving money, you know, it's all things that allow them to win and get more. And one of the things that was highlighted was some of the other things that they've done, things that some of the other services that they've provided from the PsyOps military side of things, that then are also in part integrated into some of this other stuff that they've been doing for the kind of political or private sector. And like some of the stuff like kind of information on the forcing people into a position and then keeping them there, which I believe they called I believe it was called attitude inoculation, among a couple of other kind of tangential things. Like, you put someone into a position and then lock them in that echo chamber, but you've locked them in there by giving them the key, telling them to lock themselves in, but without them realizing that that's actually what you've told them to do. So they just do it, and then they're stuck there. You know, no wonder we're seeing a situation where you run up against a certain issue, and the people that believe it, and they stick they dig their trench and they stay there regardless of what anything else that other people show them. And it's, in part, I wouldn't be surprised, because it's this kind of thing that's being used on them, where they have their attitudes locked into a single state by whatever it is that they're being exposed to. The thing that stands out to me, though, is that when it was the Trump election that Chris Wylie mentions as being like the solidification of how impactful what they were doing was for him, and that's one of the reasons why he came forward. And the thing that stands out to me in that is again, Trump didn't win the popular vote. Trump only won in the electoral colleges. But with all this information from Facebook, they could find who was in the electoral college, all of their specifics in regards to their social networks, impacting networks, their overall network for their entire community, and then they could apply the pressure to the very specific individuals that cause the biggest splashes in each network to then surround those individuals with the right atmosphere to enable a win. And you could do it as per what we saw in the Darren Brown, the Push show that we saw, that I did a video on not so long ago. As I've said in regards to manipulation in other videos I've done on manipulation, what it comes down to is you don't necessarily always realise that you're being affected by these things. In fact, most of the time, if they're done well, as per millions of dollars thrown towards various campaigns, you don't know that they're being done. You're not aware of it. Partly because you're probably not looking out for it, but also because you're not used to looking out for it. And then on top of that, because these people are being paid very well to specifically find and utilize your blind spots or your specific vulnerabilities. The example that Chris Wylie gave in his evidence was for people who are inclined towards conspiracy theories, something that you can narrow down with the amount of data that they have from Facebook. Yeah, so they can tell what level of neuroticism and whatever else you have. Your worry, what your main worries are, other things that you may have bought into, and then they go, right, okay, so that's how we get to that person. We highlight this as a conspiracy theory, we make it believable, it adds up to them logically, and so they buy into it. And then after we've bought into it, we give them a little bit of reinforcement to inoculate them, to lock them in that space, and then we just leave them there. And then they do all the work for us. This is manipulation on a huge level, by attacking the smallest, weakest parts of ourselves that we don't even really realise are there. I know it's a long piece to watch, but I would suggest anyone that's interested in this, go and watch. I think it's on YouTube. I watched it on Facebook live when it was actually going on, but I will see if I can find the full video, and I'll link it down in the description if I can. No promises, but I will try and find the full video of the 3.5-ish hours of testimony and so on presented by Chris Wylie. He also handed over 3 large folders of documentary evidence, or documentation, to back up what he was saying, and the committee said that they would be looking through all of that with a view to make some of it public. So when that comes out, I want to take a look at their various information on their methodology and things like that, to see what they were doing, how they were doing it, and then also tomorrow I want to take a look at the actual information that Facebook has on us, because if I can look at it as one man who's knowledgeable on profiling and how people work, and I can look at it at my own information and go, good God, they can pick out everything, then imagine a team with software that can automate it being able to do the same. They can turn it into a literal production line of essentially brainwashed individuals who have been kind of prompted towards a specific position that they may very well have been inclined to already, but then they've been prompted to do more than they would have done otherwise. And that's the Mancurian candidate kind of stuff here, which is the worry, and which is the thing that upsets me the most, because it's like, considering the 2 of the largest upheavals in the Western world in the last 3-4 years have been related now to these individuals, then surely that that casts a shadow over both, over Trump's election, over the Brexit campaign entirely, because you've got people literally worming their way into people's minds to get a result. That's not free choice. That's not allowing people to come to their own conclusion off the facts. But then again, as was said by Mark Turnbull and Alexander Nix in the footage from Channel 4 from their undercover investigation, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It just matters that people believe it. And that's the problem with the world today. And these are people taking advantage of that and literally getting people to do what they want, regardless of logic, regardless of truth, regardless of fact, purely for their own ends. And why do they do it? Why is it that Chris Wylie seems to be one of the only people who has come forward wholeheartedly and tried to point out that he's at least in some part responsible? Simple. He's, the majority of them they're the arms dealers in these things, and it doesn't matter who lives and who dies or how badly the world goes to war, the arms dealers always win. And they're always comfortable and they're always fine, because they're the ones supplying both sides with guns, supplying both sides with weapons of all sorts. So it's no surprise to me that that these people, Alexander Nix and some of these others, have been so callous and so uncaring and so unhelpful, because they win either way as long as they get away with it. And that's what we need to make sure that we don't allow to happen this time. They're not allowed to get away with this. They have done things that are essentially illegal, if not actually illegal. And as a result, with the amount of evidence that's coming out against these people, and considering what they've been working on, they need to be held accountable. And I would argue that the positions taken by the various powers that have been affected by this, the ones that have been put into power as a result, they should be very heavily scrutinized. If not undermined in various ways to prevent further abuses, just to ensure safety for everybody and to make sure that no one is being taken advantage of and no one is doing things that will overall be regrettable in the grand scheme. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As said, I'll try and find the video of Chris Wylie's presenting of evidence, and I'll leave it down below if I can. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.